Hamilton College Jazz Archives are filming interviews with America's greatest jazz musicians. We have here the elder statesman of jazz, Benny Waters. Pleased to have you, Benny.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
How did you get started in music?
In music?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm a protege. That's what we say in French. Maybe it's not the right word in English, you know. See, I've been in France so long. Anyway, I was born playing. I mean, it's like a gift from God. See, at 3 years old. So I was playing the piano then. So then, after I stopped playing the piano, I went to trumpet. But my lips got so sore that I gave it up right quick. Then I went to clarinet, E-flat clarinet. And I did band music, concert music. Then from the E-flat clarinet to the B-flat clarinet. And then on to the saxophone, on like that.
Everyone in your family was musical, weren't they?
Well, no, all the brothers were. My oldest brother was quite a virtuoso. He played all of the winners, rather all of the brass instruments, like the tuba and the trombone and the trumpet. He majored on the trumpet, but he could play all the brass instruments and could play clarinet also. He played little flute and oboe. He was quite a virtuoso. And the other brother played trombone. The other one played I guess they called it mellophone or something. I forget what the name of that thing in the military band. See?
Uh-huh.
But the sisters didn't play anything.
Uh-huh.
My sisters.
Yeah. You learned to hear music first and play it by ear, and then you learned to read. Is that right?
Yeah, I started by ear. See, at 3 years old, I just if I have time, I can give you a little short story just how I started playing.
Okay.
My mother was very religious, and she used to like to sing hymns. She never did have no voice, but she liked to still sing all day. And she had an organ, an old organ, country organ. I forget that it has a particular name, but I forget it now. Anyway, it was one of those little country organs, and she would always have the key locked up because she was afraid I may break it. You know, a young kid, see? So she would hide the key. So I looked and looked and looked many months for that key. So finally I found it. I looked underneath a wall and I saw something shining on the molding and in the country houses which my father built, you know? And I saw something shining in a little crack of the molding. So I went there, here's the key. So I took the key and started playing. Unlocked the thing, and she came home from her work and heard me playing, and she broke down in tears, and kissed me and hugged me, and you know, see. And from then on, the organ was never locked.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I was quite unhappy about it too. This little joke there, because my mother used to like to sing these hymns from the church, and I had to play them. And sometimes I didn't have to feel like playing. I didn't feel like playing all this stuff, you know. So by me learning to play the organ, so she had me playing a little bit too often. Yeah.
Well, that's another type of education in itself.
Yeah.
Tell us how you were trained formally, where you studied formally.
Not formally. I mean, formally I was 3 years old, see. I studied later. When I was 18, that's when I went to the New England Conservatory and took up theory, harmony, and solfeggio.
Tell us about solfeggio.
That's my studies, see.
Tell us about solfeggio.
Well, solfeggio is a sound mostly. You make chords. The way we did, my teacher, you would make a C, then I would have to hum the third, the E, and the fifth, and so forth. That's the principle, see. Then you learn. Then solfeggio also pertains notes, do, re, mi, fa, so. I can sing those notes, you know, do, mi, so, la, so, my, fa, you know. I can sing those notes like and do, mi, so, la, so, mi, fa, la, do, re, mi, you know what I mean? So that is an advantage in playing jazz. That really is. Solfeggio, I think, is well, harmony, and that's what we know we have to have harmony. Okay, that's the principle and theory. But after that, solfeggio actually gives you the sound of what's going on, so that you can hear a chord cross the street, and if you study a little bit, and you can name that chord. You tell just what it is, you know. So the solfeggio is quite important for jazz.
It's important ear.
Now some people have a absolute pitch. I don't have. I have relative pitch. Some people are born. You don't have to be a musician to have absolute pitch. You know, a lot of people are not musicians at all, but still have relative pitch. But if you're a musician that has relative pitch, that helps more also in distinguishing chords and so forth, you know. And in you playing, improvising, I'm thinking of now. That's what jazz is, improvising, see?
Yes. Tell us some of the early band leaders that you worked with.
Band, what?
Some of the early band leaders that you worked with.
The very first band when I was 14, I was working with a group named Charlie Miller. And we wasn't playing Dixieland or New Orleans, as you may call it. We were swinging. We had a similar Dixieland combination. We had trombone, trumpet, and I was playing clarinet and saxophone. So it actually was a Dixieland combination, but we didn't play Dixieland music. We played just swing songs and popular songs at that period, you know. Like at that period, you had songs like maybe Margie was back there, you know. See?
Yes.
So we had a good band there. And I was only 14 then. I was really a kid in the band. See.
Tell us how you some of the people that you play with after that. Kind of give us a little chronology.
What do you mean later? Later? Well, I came up to New York. See, I came to New York in 1926 and stayed until way into the late 40s. And the band that I worked with, see, we had some very, very, very top musicians in it. We had Edgar Sampson, the composer of Stopping at Savoy. He was a buddy of mine, see. And we had the young Benny Carter.
Yes.
We had the great Jimmy Harrison. We had Sidney DeParis on trumpet. We had the Jabbo Smith, the young Jabbo Smith in his teens. And we had one of the greatest bass horn players that I ever worked with, Billy Taylor. He finally, later, he joined Duke Ellington. But he was one of the greatest jazz bass. I noticed, and I hear a lot of that bass around here, you know, see, bass solos, you know. The bass horn, I mean, that big thing. But this guy, Billy Taylor, was the greatest I ever heard in my life.
Wow.
We had him on it, see, and we had arrangements galore. Benny Carter made arrangement on Rhapsody in Blue, and he had a white arranger who made another arrangement. We had two arrangements on the Rhapsody in Blue, things like that, you know.
Wow.
And we worked at Small's Paradise, which was easily considered the second biggest cabaret in America at that period. I would say next to Cotton Club. And because in my interview that I did in Paris on the Herald Tribune, I said that we were better than the Cotton Club. Well, that was my own idea, see. If I have time, I'd give exclamation. We had 12 girls dancing, you know, at Small's Paradise. And so did Cotton Club have 12 girls. So I made the statement that the Cotton Club had some of the most beautiful girls in Harlem, but they couldn't dance. But that was true, because we had girls who could dance. You know, it wasn't so pretty, but they could dance. You know.
How long how long were you with the band there?
10 years.
When it comes to a band playing a specific job at like you would say, a residency, how did that help you? Like, did it just give you a forum where you could continually perfect your skills?
Not particularly in big bands, you can't, but I would say, this is my own opinion, as far as a jazz man, a solo is concerned, you don't get a chance to perfect much in a big band, see, because you have to read music first thing. Because the big bands plays arrangements. And it is not like a Dixieland band just playing whatever you know. You have the notes down there, and when you do make your course, you're limited. You may take 16 bars, and and then finish and things like that, or 8 bars, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it don't develop that. Not for the small combinations where you develop to be a jazz artist in small combos, you know. But not in big bands. Big bands, well, to tell you the truth, big bands is hard. It's hard to work, particularly if you can play solos because you're reading and playing the solo too. While the other guys that can't play solos just read, and you're playing the solos and reading, doing everything. See.
When did those opportunities begin to come for you with the small combo work where you got the solo space that you needed?
Well, the small combo came in with my own band in New York. Yeah, I formed my own little group. Then I could play the new way I felt, you know, and experiment also.
What was your instrumentation with your small group?
Well, my instrumentation, I had my wife on piano, and I had a trumpet player and a guitar player that played not vibraharp, vibraphone, I think they call it. It's something like a Hawaiian guitar, you know. You play them both. They're two different instruments. So, and the drums. We had no bass, and it was quite unique because it was a little different from the other combinations. And we played popular songs, you know, show songs, because we worked in a cabaret where it's necessary to play pop songs for the public, the type of public that came to our place. So we had good combinations. I stayed there 3 years.
Now, you made your first recording in 1924?
No, I made my first recording in Philadelphia way before that. But I myself have never heard it. I made it for a guy named Perry Bradford, I think, or something like that. I forget his name a little bit. He was a kind of pioneer in recording in those days. He recorded the famous Mamie Smith.
Yes.
See, that's what I'm talking about in that period.
Black Swan Records? He was with
No,
Black
it wasn't.
Swan?
I don't know if it's Black. I don't know the name of the record right now. See, I know it's OK, Black Swan, or Emerson, or what, you know. In that category.
Yes.
Well, that was my first record. But the next record I made after, it was with this band that I worked so long at Small's Paradise. That was on Victor Records. And that session, we had Benny Carter, we had Jimmy Harrison, we had Jabbo Smith, we had Sidney DePass, and this bass player I'm telling you about. And that session, I made all the arrangements except 3. Benny Carter made 2. A white arranger named Ken McComa made 1, and all the rest I made. And that can be bought now. See, it's on Victor Records, and it's been at least 5 or 6 times it's been revived, huh?
Reissued?
Reissued, that's the word.
Marvelous, marvelous.
And I have a number on there of mine that I feel kind of proud of it because when I arranged for Charlie, I had to arrange exactly the way he asked me to. It wasn't, if it wasn't to my liking, I got paid, see, so I had to arrange it the way he said. But this number of mine called Harlem Drag is my own number, and though he gave me the privilege of making it the way I want. So that's on this Victor recording.
Marvelous.
It's called the Charlie Johnson's Paradise 10. That's the name of the band, see. Charlie Johnson's Paradise 10.
You are one of the musicians that decided to live in Europe for a while.
40 years, yeah.
Tell us about some of your experiences there.
Well, I had quite a lot. You know what I mean?
Well,
but I had
compare it to the United States.
I had a very good deal in Europe. The first thing, I made money, and I guess that's what every musician wants to do, you know. So I made more money in Europe than I did in America. So, well, everybody did, but the times were different, see. I guess when I was working at Smalls, I guess the money was about, everything was cheaper. I guess it was near about the same thing. But I started doing solo work, and solo work is where you make money. See, it's hard work because you play with everybody. You play good musicians, bad musicians, all types. But you can make more money, see.
Compare the audiences in the United States to Europe. How are the audience? How do they respond differently?
Well, I don't know. That's really a good question. That has been asked me so often. Uh, if you want to know where I think the greatest audience that I've ever played was not in Europe and not in America either. It was in the what do we call it? Like Czechoslovakia and Poland.
Uh-huh.
That's where the greatest audience. I mean, they came to the first thing. They would be lined up outside to get into the hall, and they all would be dressed up in tuxedos, just like a classic concert, you know, and tuxedos. And when you play, you didn't hear a sound, and when you finished playing, just applause. Never no hollering or whistling or anything like that. Just applause, 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 applause. They took it as an art, you know.
Yes.
That's I'm speaking of Czechoslovakia mostly, you know. But but in France, right? Actually, in France, I mean, I was there. I owned my little house there in France, so I was living there, but working all over Europe. They didn't dress up much. Maybe a few bands had the uniforms, but we didn't have much uniforms there, see.
You know, you are known as a person who continually updates your skills and your sounds, always listening to new artists and picking up new ideas. And can you tell us about that, just the process of hearing new things and bringing them into your repertoire of sounds?
Well, that can easily be explained. I tell you why, because I don't never get tired listening, you know, and I listen to everybody, everything. I listen to free jazz, I listen to bebop, I listen to fusion, and I find I get something from everything. Dixieland. I worked in the Dixieland band 3 years at Jimmy Ryan's, so I worked in a blues band, see, for a year and a half. So I didn't like the band so well, see, but still. The guy liked me, so I stayed there until I got tired and I left. But if it seems that I play fresh, I think that's what you're trying to say, see, it's because I listen. Well, first thing I studied, I know harmony. I know what I'm doing. See, I know the chords. I may not say all that I know, but I know the harmonies. You know.
Yes.
See, I play the piano, you know, see.
Yes.
Everything I play on saxophone, I can play on the piano. I don't care how hard it may be, all songs such as I Remember April and things like that. See, I remember when Laura first got popular in France, I didn't know it on my saxophone, but I could play it on the piano.
Yes.
See, so I transferred the chords from the piano to the saxophone, see. Then I listened to the other guy. I think that's one of the great things, listen to everybody. You don't have to play like everybody or copy it, but you can get so much from everybody. I tell when it comes to alto saxophone, I have 3 idols that I admired, 3 people who I admired, see, and was influenced, I would say, huh?
Yes.
That was first Johnny Hart at 13 years of age in Boston. Second, I worked and arranged for Earl Bostic at Small's Paradise when he had his band there. I worked in the band and also arranged for Earl. Not exclusive, but I made several arrangements for him, see?
Yes.
And then the next was Benny Carter, the young Benny Carter. That's on alto. And the tenor, it's naturally was no one at that period but Coleman Hawkins. Because he was the greatest of all at that period, see?
Yes.
Then you listen to everybody else, you know, so you can get something from everybody.
Yes. In fact, listening...
Then practice makes perfect, is the old saying, you know. You practice, you know.
Do you have
you can't just stay in a... Age hasn't really much to do with it. I mean, I've had that argument so much in Europe, you know. They think, a lot of people think when you get old, you can't play this and you can't play that. Age has nothing to do with whatever, but education has a lot to do with it.
Yes.
You know, education, knowing what you're doing, and the next thing important, know what the other fellow is doing, because you can't copy if you don't know what the other fellow is doing also. See, so that's the way I keep up. Then you have to practice too, you know. See. Then another thing I think is important: don't never get to the point that you think you sound so great, you know. You know, always think that there's more room for improvement.
Yes.
See, because you can always, because in music, it's a science. There's no such thing as finish.
Uh-huh.
You always get a better tone. You can always get better ideas. You can always get new harmonies. So many things you can always, as long as you live.
Yes.
See, so that, I think that clears your question.
That's a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
Do you have a regular practice routine today?
Yes, I practice every day when I'm around, more so than ever. I've been practicing now more so than I ever did in my life.
Wow.
On account of I'm not working as much as I did before. I have time.
Uh-huh.
See, so the spare time that I have, I just use a horn to find that it's an advantage to work little things out, you know.
Uh-huh.
And you can always work them out, you know.
Yes. Tell us about how it felt to get the phone call to be one of the statesmen of jazz.
Huh?
Tell us about how it felt when you were called to be one of the members of the statesmen of jazz, the senior member.
Well, I thought it was a great thing, see. And I still think it's a great thing, regardless if I'm playing in it or who. I think the idea is great, and I wish it's a big success. But I think that if we're gonna record, I think we could have made more stress on getting a perfect record, and to do that you have to have rehearsal.
Yes.
See, that's my only complaint. See, but the idea is great because you have thousands and thousands of guys, 65 and over, that play well.
Yes.
You may not have many 93-year-olds because they're not living. See, but 65 and 70, you know?
Yes.
Well, from 65 to 80, for instance, there's thousands of guys that, I tell you the truth, I think, for my part, some of the best musicians who are playing jazz are over 65.
Yes.
The type of jazz I like,
Uh-huh.
you know?
You know, you are a living historian. Every time you play, you know, you're the oldest internationally touring musician active in jazz. So every time you play, you are history. What does that feel like?
Well, I don't know. That's what the people say, you know. See, that's not mine. I'm just doing the best I can, you know. See, I'm not. How the people feel, the reaction is up to the people, you know.
Uh-huh.
I've been playing so much in the States, but in Europe, the reaction has been great. You know, stand-up ovations and so forth. Every place I play, crowded places, you know.
Yes.
And I was telling some friend of mine, I said, jazz don't owe me anything because what I didn't make financially, if I didn't make it in the States, I made up for it in Europe.
Yes.
See, so it's been good to me, you know.
That's a wonderful story,
Yeah.
too. The fact that you have this positive relationship with the art form itself.
Yes, well, I've been in it a long time, see, you know. I was playing as a soloist organ in the church in concerts when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
I had my sister pumping the thing. that I forget the name of that organ, a little church country organ. I couldn't reach the pedals. You pump it like that, you know.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't reach it. I was too short, see. And my sister used to pump it while I played. And I was doing concerts. It was booked as a boy one day, you know, one of those things. So I've been playing as a soloist for a long time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
90 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Have you had occasion during your many years of experience to work with either Count Basie or Joe Williams?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. I wish I did. But I tell you what, I did work with a band that, well, I may be saying something that people won't agree to, but I had a pleasure working with Jimmy Listen. I thought it was a greater band than Count Basie.
Uh-huh.
Not musically, not exclusive musically, but for all around entertaining and music combined. I think it was a better band than Count Basie. So I had the pleasure of working with Jimmy a couple of years. I mean, Jimmy Lunsford, see? And I worked with Fletcher Henson 3 years.
Uh-huh.
Fletcher was a king of swing at that time. There was nobody. That was way before Basie or Duke and all Charlie Johnson or any of those bands, you know.
Uh-huh.
Fletcher Fletcher pioneered. So that's why Benny Carter got, Benny Goodman got him to make the arrangements.
Yes.
That's when I was working with Fletcher at the same time that he was arranging for Benny Goodman.
Yes.
And Fletcher was really something else there. I mean, as far as a swing group.
Uh-huh.
There was nobody that could excel Fletcher, particularly after he made his change and got the guys, such guys as Coleman Hawkins. Well, Coleman was there first, but when had Benny Carter in the band, and he also got the great Louis Armstrong.
Yes.
And when he got the great Louis Armstrong, that lifted him up just like Ella Fitzgerald did with Chick Webb. You know, the lift went on up to high and high. You know.
Oh, that's marvelous.
But the bands that I think was great was Jimmy Lunsford. Not that his band was any greater musically than Count, or Duke, or Fletcher, but we had more entertaining than all those bands.
Uh-huh.
So we had 5 singers, individual singers in the band. We had a quartet, we had a trio, and we all did group singing.
Uh-huh.
And we had 5 singers. Joe Thomas used to sing well. The little saxophone player, Willie Smith, sang well.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2. We had Dan Grissom as a soloist that sang all the time, you know. We had Trummy Young back there singing. We had another trumpet player, I forget his name, and Cy Oliver, you know, they all did well, you know.
Yes.
So that was a little bit, for me, it was a little bit better than Count or Duke. I mean, in my opinion, you know.
Uh-huh. As an alto sax player, can you relate to anything, relate for us anything of the innovations that came on the scene when Charlie Parker came on the scene?
Well, explain that again.
How did he change the way that alto sax players played when...
Well, Charlie gets the credit for that, see, of pioneering in a new style. Personally, I've heard Benny Carter play so much when he was young, see, and I always thought Benny was a pioneer also. His style was at that particularly that period, but I give Charlie the credit of changing the scene in the alto playing.
Uh-huh.
But you know, he did most of that when he arrived in New York.
Uh-huh.
I heard him in Kansas City with Jamie Shine. I heard him. He wasn't playing exactly the same way. He was still, you could hear edges of his style coming out, but it wasn't perfected until he got associated in New York City with Dizzy.
Yes.
That's when it came out, see.
Wow. If you, after all your many years of experience, if you could leave today's music scene and our young and upcoming students.
Well, say it again, I didn't understand.
If you could leave our young students coming up with a word of wisdom about how this music is put together or why jazz is such a beautiful art form, or could you just give us a word of wisdom?
Yeah, I can tell you that right quick. I mean, study, that's all.
Uh-huh.
Study. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You remember that joke about the guy in the street on 7th Avenue, and another guy asked him, how can I get to Carnegie Hall? He said, practice, man, practice.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah,
that is great.
Study, that's all. A lot of people, I know musicians, jazz musicians that try to fill some of the young guys' ears full of nonsense, as I call it. You said, oh man, when you study too much, it takes away from playing. That's the biggest lie that you ever heard of. There's no such thing as study taken away from anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I know that there's guys that are gifted. Johnny Hodge is one of them. And so many I know that's one of them that are gifted and plays. See, but it's nothing better than study.
Mm-hmm.
Know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you study, the better you get.
Mm-hmm.
To prove it, some of the greatest musicians that we have in jazz are guys who studied also. So we have some that didn't, okay, but that's my idea. I say study, you know, that's what I would say. Study harmonies, you know, so you know what you're doing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
see. more harmonies you know, more you can play something, you know.
The more variation you can bring to the music.
That's right. And you can then, by studying it, you can play one way today and another way the next day, you know. You know, I can, that's why I'm having so much trouble with the mic sometimes. I can't express myself the way I want to because I don't play entirely stereotype, you know. I play whatever comes to my mind, but I can't do it if the mic don't work so I can hear myself. That's why I have so much trouble with the mic. But you still can't play it unless you know. You must know it on your own. You can't go beyond your knowledge. See, and if a person is playing, another person is playing, and the other guy has more knowledge, he's going to sound better. You know, he's going to sound better. If two guys have the same talent and have the same even a guy was playing, we saw called gut bucket saxophone. A guy is playing gut bucket saxophone, and they both playing the same. The one has the most knowledge is the one that will sound better because he can take more advantages. So it goes back to the same thing, just study, that's all, see. But the young kids are studying now. It's not like it used to be, see. So I took advantage of it when I was 18 years old. That was rare. There was not many jazz musicians in that school where I went at the New England Conservatory. I took advantage of it only because my mother, it was in her will for me to study music, not to study jazz, but to study classics.
Tell us about that will.
Well,
Tell us what was in there.
She wanted me to tell my aunt to see that I went to the conservatory, which I did, but I didn't do it like she wanted. She wanted me to be a concert pianist. When I got in Boston, I got drinking whiskey and smoking and those chicks, you know. But I still went 3 days a week as an irregular student for about 5 years. So I got a lot, you know.
Yes.
I got a lot, see.
Yes.
There's always more you can learn, but I got quite a lot of musical knowledge from that.
Yes. That time of formal study solidified the gift.
I display that in Europe. I mean, I was working with a piano player that also went to Berkeley, but he didn't know how to play an introduction for a singer. So I got to the piano and played the introduction, and the singer came in just as easy, you know. For one reason, because at the end of the phrase where you're supposed to use a seventh chord, a dominant chord, rather you can say more so, a dominant chord with common songs to bring a singer in so she can hear the note. He wasn't doing that, and I did, and that chord. That's from knowledge. See, it's not gift; it's from knowledge.
Marvelous.
And I'm not a piano player. See, I mean, I'm a saxophone player, but this guy was a good piano player, but he just didn't know how to play for a singer because he didn't have the experience, you know.
Yes.
And the knowledge.
Well, this concludes our interview with the great Benny Waters, one of the most fabulous alto sax players in these United States.
And big word, partner.
But you live up to it in every way. You live up to it in every way.
Well, I thank you so much, but I don't feel that way myself. I just feel that I play quite well. For my age and so forth, I think I play quite well, but so many guys play so well, you know.
Thank you. Thank you.